So, good evening, guys. First off, thank you for allowing us to come to your meeting from Serve, Learn, Sustain. We're really excited just to share in general what the student perspective is for Serve, Learn, Sustain, and two, of course, why it's important to you guys, right? What opportunities might be there for you to A, do something a little bit different at Georgia Tech, and B, supplement your skill set so you can do a better job in your major or in Engineers Without Borders itself as well. So we're just going to do three 30-second introductions, then get into the meat of our actual presentation. So to start things off, I'm Brennan O'Brien. I'm a fifth year now student at Georgia Tech studying mechanical engineering. I worked in the Nicaragua project for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then transitioned into the president role. And I did that for a year term before handing things off. And I do have to say, it is really awesome seeing so many familiar faces that I met throughout those first 3 years. I could name everybody, but I would be nervous I'd leave out one or two people. So just in general, it's fantastic to see so many of you guys who have sort of progressed up throughout the years. With that, I'd love to hand it off to Atticus to have him introduce himself as well.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Atticus Lemieux. I'm a fourth year now. Oh gosh, it just hit me. I'm fourth year. Anyway, I'm a fourth year environmental engineer. I was involved with EWB. Um, when was it? January 2018 through December 2019. So a little under 2 years with the Uganda project. That project has now since closed out, but it was a water distribution project in Ilo, Uganda. So it was really cool, really exciting. And through that, my time there, I was the corporate sponsors chair on the finance team. Had a really great time. A lot of things we're going to be talking about are really close to our heart because our project closed out for some community sustainability reasons. So lots of discussion to talk about there. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Jasmine.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Jasmine Lucio, and I'm a fifth year environmental engineering. I'm doing the full victory lap, so I'll be graduating next spring. And I don't have any experience with Engineers Without Borders, however, with SLS for a year now, and I've had the opportunity to work on the Innovating for Social Impact program, and I'm currently in the VIP Building for Sustainability and Equity with Dr. Hirsch, and I've learned a ton about equity through that, and I'm also involved in a couple of other things. That's why I'm super excited to talk about it. Yeah, we can go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Yeah. So as we get into this, if people have specific questions, just simply let us know. I haven't done that hand raising thing before, um, but if that's something that people want to do, please do, or just speak up and ask a question. But we're gonna start off by going through a little bit of the background of what Circle and Sustain is, so that when we get into the stuff about why it's actually relevant to each of us as students, we all have some common understanding. So to begin with, what Circle and Sustain actually offers to us as students are opportunities, both extracurricular and through Georgia Tech's curriculum, to interact with other people in this broader sustainability community. Because as I'm sure some of you have seen, there are a lot of familiar faces even within that Georgia Tech bubble in that sustainability sphere. So through SLS, we have the opportunity, right, to work with community members here in Atlanta, nonprofit groups, members of the government, people in Atlanta's administration, people who work in academia, both here at Tech and at other schools in the area, and people who also work in business, innovating things here in Atlanta. So our goal at Serve and Sustain is to give us opportunities as students to gain this knowledge, to gain these skills, and use that to go out there and, just as we do in Engineers Without Borders, create more sustainable communities. Let me switch slides.
All right, so I don't know if anybody has seen this diagram before, but at SLS, we really have a pretty, not strict, but comprehensive definition of what sustainability is. Most people think sustainability is just really something regarding the environment, maybe you'll say, oh, I practice sustainability by recycling or not using styrofoam or something like that. But to SLS, sustainability is really the intersection of society, economy, and environment. Hopefully, while you're working in your projects, you're realizing that everything you're doing really has an impact, from the people you're working with, the society you're working with, to the local economies that you're helping contribute to, whether it's just a small, maybe it's like a mom and pop business that's gaining some sort of benefit from a water distribution project you're doing. And obviously you're helping the environment through the projects you're doing. So sustainability to SLS is really the intersection. So that little triangle right in the center of society, economy, and the environment. We also believe that sustainability is an integrated system like we're talking about. So it could be the intersection of society and economy, or economy and environment, or economy or environment and society. It doesn't have to be all three of them, but true sustainability is the intersection of all three, and that's where a lot of work can really be done within a community based approach. So like it's saying, we put a lot of emphasis on society and social sustainability, because just as much as the environment is a huge player within sustainable development, so is this societal development and the economic development.
As Brendan was mentioning, we have a lot of collaborators with the local, the Greater Atlanta sustainability community. And in order to have equitable partnerships, we have a set of partnership principles. At SLS, all of our work starts and ends with assets. We call that asset-based community development, or ABCD. And in order to ensure the success of our partnerships, we also have things such as uh, collaboration agreements and a scope of work template, so that we can make sure that both the partner and SLS is on the same page, and we are able to get through or make sure our deliverables are according to what both parties are expecting. And throughout the work that SLS does, we focus highly on equity and justice. And what the third one means when we say champion systems change is by making sure we start the conversations with the kind of like the heavier topics, such as like socioeconomic factors of race, ethnicity, and income. We do our best to support community innovators, and we prioritize process before outcomes 100%. That ties into the asset-based, the ABCD work that we do, and the different templates and agreements that we make sure we have during our partnerships. And of course, we are trying our best to contribute to the local community, not just the specific location or product that we are working on, and making sure that if there are currently existing grassroots efforts, that we empower those or collaborate with those any way we can. And anytime technology is involved, we make sure to apply it in a social context, raising technology as kind of like the end all be all, making sure that technology is used to empower communities and not become sort of like a one stop shop, like a solution. And I can talk more about ABCDs, community development, especially as it pertains to Engineers Without Borders. But I guess we can have like a discussion towards the end about that, so we can do the rest of this.
Awesome. So to Jasmine's point too, I think if you look at those and those 7 principles and think, wow, a lot of that sounds like what we do at Engineers Without Borders, you'd be absolutely right to draw that conclusion. And I think for those of us who had our feet in both Engineers Without Borders and Serve and Sustain, there was this realization that there's just a ton of overlap and opportunities to gain new skills and new applications that we can then use in our other sustainable pursuits. And so that's something that I think is just really important. And to that end, our approach, the approach of Serve and Sustain to technology, is that it's something that's supposed to allow the community to pursue their vision and to improve their lives and improve their surroundings. So not that, just like Jasmine was saying, it's the end all be all. Creating a new cook stove is fantastic, or implementing a new cook stove is fantastic if you're looking at Nicaragua. But how does that cook stove allow this community to lift themselves up, and how does it allow this community to avoid some of these health issues or environmental issues that they've been facing. That's huge, and that's a major part of what Serve Learn Sustain is how are we actually going to take these tools, this technology, being from Georgia Tech, and apply it in such a way that it actually benefits the people who are going to be receiving this. And from here, Atticus is going to touch on some of those programs, some of the things available through Serve Learn Sustain to us as students, and show us how those are things that we could then use in our time at Andrews Lab Borders or in our time at Georgia Tech in general to become better at what we're doing.
Yeah, I would actually, if you don't mind going back one slide, I just have one small thing to
Yeah.
add. Um, a lot of, especially when I joined EWB, I really thought I was going to be focusing a lot on technical innovation and really just working on like the nuts and bolts of a project. And while we were doing that, and while a lot of that was very technical minded, a big thing that kind of led to the Uganda project having some issues near the end was not developing those sustainable community practices. So I urge you within your groups, especially if you're an exec leader, just kind of champion ways that you can collaborate with the community and the people you're working with, whether it's an NGO or maybe some sort of liaison that you might be having, especially within the community dynamics, to really focus not just on the technical approach, because sustainability is a huge umbrella. So it encompasses everything regarding community dynamics to financial things to technology. So just I really urge you to focus just as much as in your technology and the outcome of your project. Focus just as much on the community and the sustainability that you're working with in terms of community relations. So yeah, like Brendan was saying, I will talk about a little bit of what SLS does on campus. So we have 6 major programs that we really focus on a campus-wide level. Obviously, we work outside of campus with nonprofits and governmental organizations, but on campus, we have 6 main programs. Like shown on the screen, we have a minor in sustainable cities. We have a program called Innovating for Social Impact, or I4SI. We have an internship program, which I actually was a participant in last summer. We have I think around 150 linked courses. So we have a good amount of linked courses. We have events and workshops throughout the semester. And then we have a program called RCE Greater Atlanta. So just to kind of highlight a couple of these, so we're not taking all day, or all night, I should say. Just definitely as registration is going on, I encourage you to look at the linked courses. A lot of the professors that we have at Tech are really pioneers in what they're doing. And Georgia Tech is on the forefront of kind of champion sustainability initiatives through the Sustainable Development Goals. And we've kind of utilized that as a way to introduce students to sustainable practices through their direct coursework that they're doing. So we've partnered with, like I said, over 150 courses and professors on our campus to integrate some sort of sustainability aspect into the course material, whether it's a project or maybe a lesson, or maybe even just as small as a representative from SLS coming to talk to the class. But I definitely encourage you to look at the courses that you're taking and seeing if there is any sort of SLS, I guess, marker within it. Look at it and see if that's something you're interested in. I guarantee you're going to be able to get something very exciting out of that. We also have something called the RCE Greater Atlanta, which is a network of students, faculty members, academics, researchers, politicians, business owners, small business owners, nonprofit leaders, all throughout the greater Atlanta area who are really just collaborating and working on finding innovation within the Atlanta area to promote sustainability and sustainable development goals. I helped develop the youth network for it a couple years ago, so I'm definitely happy to talk more if you guys want to chat. I'll leave my email in the chat box if you guys want to send me an email if that's something of interest. But yeah, if you want to go on to the next slide, unless anybody else has anything else to say about any of these 6 programs.
You know, one thing I would just say is if you are, curious about, okay, what does this mean to me? What does this matter to me? You can always go to the website. I will always plug the website as a resource. I did do a lot of work on it, and I I think the website is a great place to start and ask yourself, okay, I'm looking for an internship, but I don't know if this is the right type of internship for me. Well, there's a lot of awesome information and student testimonials about that. And like Jasmine was saying earlier, with how much work she's done with I4SI, innovating for social impact, if you're asking yourself, okay, what does that mean? What sort of commitment does that request of me? Go to the website. It's a resource, and as a resource, there's a lot of information there to help you further figure out why it particularly is there for you. Ultimately, what binds all these things together are that they are opportunities for us as students to develop our skills and do that in a classroom setting in a linked course with a team innovating for social impact, in our business careers and building up our resume through the internship program, or just for general knowledge in event or workshop. So really all of these things go back to that point of this is how I can become more involved in sustainability and more invested in these topics that each of these programs are about.
If I can add something as well, the internship program, like it's you're also doing that with like Atlanta community partners, so you'll probably see them again if you're going to be continuing and your involvement with sustainability within it. And also the innovating for social impact, you might actually qualify for certification on accident if you've taken any of the SLS Foundation courses or if you've done the study abroad for social good. That's already one major chunk of the program. And if you've taken a couple of VIPs that have to do social innovation, or you can use those to qualify for the program certification. And it's just a little extra pizzazz to your LinkedIn and resume. So I would encourage, I can drop the link. You can just browse the requirements. You may already qualify for it. So
Awesome. And then, Jasmine, if you want to talk a little bit more about these courses as well, love to get a bit more background on them.
happy to. So the first introduction I had to SLS was through an affiliated course. I took an English course like freshman year, and it was affiliated with SLS, and we were partnering with a community partner that focused on kind of like bracing communities for getting through harsher weather conditions and ensuring like there's equitable distribution for resources for the communities during harsher weather conditions. And I didn't really dive too deeply into SLS after that. It was a couple of years later when I took an SLS Foundation course as an approved elective. I took Technology and Sustainable Communities with Ruthie Yao and Ellen Zagura. And they, just the way they taught the class, like really made it feel like a more of like a safe space. And it was taught primarily with a bunch of CS majors because I think it was for the CS program. So it was really good to not be surrounded by the people, I guess, like that I'm normally surrounded by. But nothing against them, but like it was good to be in a different environment. And we had a couple of community partners come and talk to us, and we had the opportunity to work on a project with a growth park, which was really interesting to me because I was born and raised in Georgia, so I felt like there wasn't much that I didn't know about Atlanta. But I was very surprised to realize that I really didn't know much at all, even about Grove Park, which is along Donnelly Hollowell. And I used to drive down Donnelly Hollow all the time. So I was really surprised to learn so much about something that's so close to me. And I used to drive through every single day and really establish like a partnership with them and like contribute positively to the community. So I highly encourage you look into the SLS Foundation courses. It's actually also how I got this job. Because I talked to Ruthie about like how to continue my involvement within SLS, and she recommended me to apply, and I did, um, and the study abroad program is also really exciting. It's a program where students get to go to Europe and also get to work with local community partners out there and help further their projects. And I'm pretty sure it's through the college. It's through Scheller, but I can also provide more information about that. But There's also like a business side to the courses. I know there's also like a city planning course that SLS does. Yeah, we can drop some information in the chat about those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Jasmine was saying a really good point that I think is a lot of people's first step into server learn sustain, which is you see it somewhere in your classroom and then say, this is interesting. What else could I do that allows me to do a bit more with that? And I think, yeah, that's getting back to this period of registration. If you have an elective and you're looking to get a bit more of that formal side of things on sustainability or get more of that education and incorporate some work with sustainability into your actual curriculum, check and see if your major has some classes that are cross-listed with Serve, Learn, Sustain. There will typically be like a marker, I believe, in the if you go to like one of the course listings, and we all know how bad that Oscar system can be, but in those course listings, sometimes I think it says with like asterisks like SLS affiliated. Again, you can all there should be a list on the website that says like these are the fall well, I guess at this point, spring 2021 courses. And I know that's something that just if you're a mechanical engineer, there are courses that are cross-listed with that. If you're a health course, that was a good example of like I did a community health course instead of a individual health course, and that was really cool. It was a good alternative to just the kind of typical, boring, in my opinion, Georgia Tech health course, and allowed me to actually take a look at how community health can affect the individual and do what we all did in Engineers Without Borders and address things at the community level. And that's something that's really important to Serve, Learn, Sustain is these projects that SLS tries to have students engage with are driven primarily by the community, which again may sound familiar to you in Engineers Without Borders because, of course, that's a massive part of things is that community buy-in. And that's something that is really pushed. A great example is this one member of the partnership is Gary Harris, and Gary, he's a Atlanta community member who runs his own renewable energy either company or consulting group, and he is on the board because he just so passionately talks about his community and has this unique perspective. And that's the type of thing that you can only get if you are talking to somebody who's a leader or an individual in their community. And so that's something that I think is really awesome about the projects and the partners that SLS partners with is that SLS listens to them and gets information from them and uses that information to then tailor the experiences for students. And so that back and forth facilitating things between these community partners and us as students is something that I think SLS is just really good for and that you would see and be able to then take back and contribute to your work with Engineers Without Borders if you were to go do a course that has you partner with somebody or to do an extracurricular event that allows you to work with a partner or like Atticus or myself. And I forget if Jasmine mentioned if she interned or not, but through the internship, you work with a community partner and you can then take that experience and understand working for them. Now you have this knowledge of what that individual needs, whether they're an organization or just one person. And you can use that to then go back to your role as a student or as someone in Engineers Without Borders and say, I've been on the other side of this. I understand what they need.
Yeah. Okay. Do you mind going back to that slide? Actually, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So just looking at this, I hadn't looked at this slide super detailed, but just looking at it right now, I kind of thought about the Malawi project, how that is a newer project, and there's definitely some older projects on here. But most folks, when they're starting a new project or if a new project is in the works, you think that a lot of the communication has to happen at the forefront, like setting up your team, setting up your membership, setting up who you're going to be in contact with in country and all of that sort of things. And then once you get your footing and you get this foundation set and you start making whatever project you're going to start working on going, it's kind of becoming autonomous as time goes on. But it's kind of the opposite. There's a lot of legwork that goes on in the beginning, and that's just kind of like the initial phases, but you have to add and kind of double that amount of effort that you're putting into the communication with the communities as the project is going on. Like this diagram is showing, and it's important to note this is one smaller piece of a larger diagram. The hyperlink here can show you the entire thing, and we can send this out later on if you're interested in learning more. But just one thing to really take away with this is when you're working with a community or a collaborator, you're not a consultant, you're not the lead engineer for that project. You're working with the community, you're not working for the community, basically. So think about that when you're talking about the project too, but also realize when you're talking to your members or talking to exec teams, or if you're just a general member talking to other folks in your team, really start to have that communication build up as the project goes on, because you'll find a lot of loose ends kind of get left untied as the project continues, and those loose ends can kind of start to unravel as the project goes on and the years kind of progress, and it could become a huge knot at the end. So really just kind of, and it's kind of like a interesting analogy, but like communication is the way to kind of like tie those loose ends back together. So really have those talks with the community now, and don't wait till the end to see what would happen. But yeah, I encourage everybody to click on this hyperlink when we send it out later on if they're curious to see what the rest of the diagram looks like. But this is a interesting component. Sorry for that little tangent, but happy to go on to the next slide. Yep, okay, so like we're talking about, here's that, that diagram again. Our ultimate goal is to create a community where people flourish, people and nature flourish, and like we've kind of talked about through society, economy, and environment. So I think a big divide that people kind of have is, especially when talking about the internships, maybe hearing, oh, I'm working with a nonprofit or I'm working with a small community. It's not as technical or it's not as like grandeur as you think working with like Shell or maybe GE or something like that. But there's just as much impact, if not more, that you would be able to have through these smaller community projects, because you're having such a direct relationship with the people you're working with, and you can kind of see the tangible results. So I think definitely within each of the projects that you guys are working on, you're in a really unique and great position to kind of get exposed to all of the things we're talking about right now through a very real world setting. I think as much as you're applying technical skills you've learned through your coursework or through other projects you might have had, you have the really unique opportunity to be applying other community driven and soft skills that we're kind of talking about here. This chart and this diagram are kind of talking about everything we're talking about. So I'm going again on a little tangent, but just really use the experience you're having within EWB to kind of solidify and strengthen your ability as, I know not everybody on here is an engineer or a STEM major, but really solidify your experience as somebody who can make a big change within a community through your communication efforts, through your, I guess, lens that you're looking through, as it not just being working for a community, but working with them and actually having a direct relationship with the people you're working with. So within each of your projects, I definitely think if you want, this could be a fun activity. Look and see what you're doing towards it to help the society. Look to see what you're doing to help the environment. Look to see how you're helping the economy. See if there's any overlap between two or three of them, or see if there's anything that you could be doing to kind of mitigate that deficit. If you're finding that you're helping the society and the environment, but you're really not helping the economy, look to see if there's anything you can be doing within your project or even communication skills within the community to kind of help that economy, whether it's nurturing a small business partnership between an NGO or something like that. Just I challenge you guys to look at that, because again, this trifecta here is the true definition of sustainability from an SLS lens. So, yep, I'll stop talking.
I like how like we all kind of have to catch ourselves. Yeah, we're all really excited to be here, and I know we all share the same passion about sustainability. So feel free to drop any comments in the chat below. To further challenge you guys, I would like to encourage everyone to, whenever you're trying to frame your work in the terms of sustainability, to use the SDGs to do that, because they're a great way to get a solid framework, because I know the SDGs have like further details about and milestones and metrics for how they quantify satisfying an SDG, or how a certain project relates to an SDG. And the SDGs overall are described as a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity. And that's a pretty heavy description. That's a lot going on. Hence the 17 SDGs. So I definitely challenge you guys, whenever you're working on a project that would like to be focused on sustainability, to tie them into very specific sustainable development goals, and try to keep in mind that framework, so that it's easier to stay on track and like use those metrics, and also just spread the word about SDGs, because they're really cool.
And I know, just to interject, that at least at the exec level, I would hope that there's still been some discussion around the SDGs way back when, like my first year with EWB, we were talking about the Millennial Development Goals. Millennial or Millennium, I'm blanking on exactly which word they use, but the ones for the first 15 or 20-year period of this millennium. And it was something that I hadn't known about beforehand, and then allowed a really awesome transition into the Sustainable Development Goals. And I know people who on LinkedIn list their favorite 3 SDGs, and I just think it's an awesome way to frame your projects that you're working on, and ask yourself, okay, if I'm pursuing number 10, trying to reduce inequality, and I'm also pursuing number 6, clean water and sanitation, if I'm on Malawi and we're trying to really get this community sanitized, and to practice good sanitation practices, what should I be doing based on like these UN recommendations? And the UN isn't always perfect, but these guidelines are a good starting point if you're looking at things from a top-down level, from this like architectural, trying to figure out what the actual foundation is of what you're working on. Yeah, and I think this is all that we had for you guys today. But with that, I would love to open it up for questions if there are any. You just want to ask us what our experience has been like as students, more broadly at Georgia Tech, or specifically with EWB. I think an awesome final thing to leave you guys with is just ask yourself, what about sustainability interests me, and to that end, what can I keep doing at Georgia Tech to further my pursuit of sustainability? Being involved with Engineers Without Borders is a fantastic thing, and I think is a great way to engage with any part of your technical skills being here at Georgia Tech, to further some of these more international goals. But on that personal level, asking yourself, what do I really want to know and learn so that I can apply these skills in the future for myself and in the work I'm doing. And like Jasmine said, just thank you guys as well for allowing us to come here. I know that each of us love talking about Serve, Learn, Sustain. The organization is nearing the end of its initial development period by Georgia Tech, and coming and talking to students is a huge way for us as students to share the word about why we love SLS and why SLS should stick around. And that's something that we really encourage you guys to take a look at too, is to just see if you like this kind of stuff, get involved in some of those programs we talked about beforehand. Check out the website, look and see if there's a class that interests you, or if you want to join the RCE. It's always looking for new people. Isabella Stubbs of the Nicaragua Project basically was a massive motivator for getting the youth component off the ground, and Atticus has done an amazing job working on that as well. And it's just something that I think you can tell that the people who work in this stuff in this field are so passionate about what they're doing, and to be able to talk to others who are doing that, who have been involved for a little bit, is a fantastic opportunity. And I'll step off my soapbox at that point, but that's really what I wanted to leave you guys with.
I just dropped another link. Sorry for bombarding you guys with links, but uh, that link will lead you to some teaching toolkits, which a lot of the SLS affiliated courses and foundation courses reference to a lot. It's ways that SLS works to incorporate topics such as equity and sustainability within the Georgia Tech curriculum, and they're provided to a lot of professors that range from all sorts of topics that are trying to get more on the board of framing their work in terms of equity and sustainability. You're curious to look at those, but yeah, I do want to leave for comments or questions about asset-based community development or whatever.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I thought that was a really great presentation. Thanks, guys. I was just curious because I know Brendan and Atticus, you mentioned that you were in EWB and you talked about all these like core tenets of SLS. Can you like possibly, it's kind of putting you on the spot, but think of like a specific instance where you used concepts from SLS or you applied them to work that you did in EWB or vice versa, just like an instant of that maybe.
Atticus, if you have one, you can go first. Otherwise, I'm happy to grab it.
I know where we could have applied some aspects of SLS into our project,
Go for
but
it.
yeah, I guess I kind of alluded to it a little bit at the beginning, but I was on the Uganda project, which was a water distribution project. I don't remember if it had been 7 or 9 years in the process, but it was an older project, so it was nearing the end, and we near the end of our project kind of ran into some community relations issues. Obviously, as you all know, there is a 5% cost that the community has to contribute to, and there is a little bit of corruption with our NGO that we were talking and communicating with in terms of securing those funds and realizing where those funds might have been. So there was a lot of mistrust within the community on the more of the community members, not so much the community leader side, about our role as engineers and those helping within the project, if we were actually serious about continuing within that project, because we weren't able to travel, we weren't able to visit the community because those funds were missing in quotation marks. So I think one aspect of SLS that we really could have applied earlier on, it's not something that we had done except for the last, I think, semester, maybe a little bit in the semester before, but was developing our community relations. Like we've talked about, really championing member ideas and ensuring that line of communication and kind of breaking down that wall between somebody who's working for a community or for a project or for a person, but actually working with them. So I've talked about this throughout the entire presentation, but really just championing some sort of communication line and community relation dynamics between not just the members, but also the upper leaders within the community that you're working for, and holding them accountable. I know it's kind of scary to do as a student. Maybe it's hard to talk to somebody who could be really influential within the community, but really holding people accountable and making sure that those lines of communications are open. It's kind of what we alluded to. I hope that was enough time to give you time to think about an example, Brendan, but that's about all I have to say.
Yeah, I think back to an early experience in my time with NGOs Without Borders. And Sabrina, you said you're the comms lead for Nicaragua?
I'm the vice project lead.
Yes, vice project lead. Thank you. And back when I was working on the Nicaragua project, something that came up was we had students, and everyone in here is smart. You all get into Georgia Tech. We know that we're all, pretty smart students. But we had been developing a cook stove here at Tech that was really good. It was good from a technical standpoint, but we had to make the incredibly hard decision, and I did not envy the main project lead at all, but we had to make the incredibly hard decision to not pursue that further, even though it was technically incredible, and instead pursue a cook stove that was manufactured in country. And we had to do this. Why? Because it was best for the community from a cost perspective, from a sourcing perspective. And that was a really hard, I think, pill to swallow for a lot of Georgia Tech students is we're really, really capable. There are a lot of capable people here, and you're all going to be working with a ton of capable people over your time at Georgia Tech. But something that is some humble pie that we all have to take away is that sometimes a great idea isn't everything, and a major part of that is the is asking the question, is this not just the best solution, but is it the right solution? And this gets back to part of what Atticus was saying too, and not to harp too much on that community relationship side of things, but the only way that we're going to find out the right solution is to talk to the community, and that is a massive part of things. So my example would really be that that two-part piece of listen to the community and pursue a solution that is right for that community. That's a principle that I've really noticed in my time at Serve and Sustain as well with the higher ups in the organization. I've attended events where they said, I really love how that event went, but it didn't go correct in terms of the impact it needed to make because it didn't hit the right things for the audience. The director of Serve and Sustain loved it, but she knew, even though she loved what was going on, that it wasn't hitting the right end goal. And that's something that was always present throughout anything that Serve and Sustain was doing was, and always does is this hitting the right goal for the audience involved?
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, that was very in depth. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's
Yeah.
very inspiring.
You're very welcome. I love talking about Engineers Without Borders. I love talking about Serve and Sustain. Like Atticus said, could probably go on forever with it. So, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to keep answering.
I don't have a question, but more of a comment. So I'm graduating soon, so this is more for people who are younger but kind of interested in everything that we've been talking about. A lot of the things like asset-based community development, SDGs are stuff we've been trying to bring up more in our conversations. We had a presentation on all that last semester too, and it's great to see, the shared concepts and how that information is spreading across Georgia Tech's campus. Really great to see. And I've always admired SLS. I just wanted to say, I think whenever I was a freshman or sophomore, like I looked at SLS and I was like, oh, I'm kind of already getting that through Engineers Without Borders, but I was completely wrong. I've noticed in being involved on the Uganda project and seeing the other projects right now being on the exec board, our members who are involved in both are more engaged and are able to make, I guess, a more efficient impact on your project. And then you're able to reference that in SLS coursework, et cetera, to kind of expand the knowledge that you're gaining firsthand. And I think it's a really beneficial relationship. And I don't want members to hear this tonight and be like, oh, that's just another thing to add to the list of like things I should do before SLS is a bucket of resources for you that I wish I took more advantage of. So I guess I just want to relay that to all of our younger members.
I'd also like to say that also once you get to know some of the higher ups within the SLS, they'll really champion for you, really, really hard. They'll if you have a problem, they'll do whatever's in their power to get it addressed. So I've also really loved that about the little SLS family.
Yeah, and I think to Madison's point too, that's I think a big thing we wanted to communicate was we didn't want to come here just to say, hey, here's a whole bunch of promo stuff, just some stuff to make us feel good about SLS. We really want to tell you guys that like these are awesome resources that, like Madison said, can help you do a more efficient or effective job, quite simply. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of that common thread that unites anyone here in EWB. That making a big impact is important, and we firmly believe as students here at Tech who have gone through it that SLS allows you to make that impact, plain and simple. Yeah, and like Atticus said too, if you want to engage with someone individually, feel free to send an email there, and there will always be people who want to talk or help you out, even on an individual level.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions? All right. That being said, Brendan, Atticus, Jasmine, thank you all so very much for coming and speaking to
Thank
us
you
today.
guys.
Of course, it was so great to
Thank
talk
you
to you guys.
again. Yeah, absolutely appreciate it.
Have a nice night, everybody.
All right,
too.
take care.
Yes, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.